The assignment for learning outcome 2 in chapter 7 was to elaborate on how we retrieve information from memory. To begin with, I thought I would elaborate on how the retrieval process is important. Many of our failures are failures of retrieval, meaning that the information is in there, as in our memories, but we can't get to it or access it at that point in time. An example of this would be trying to remember who was the singer of a song that you heard on the radio, that you hear on the radio, and you know who it is, but can't quite get to it at that time. I believe people refer to this as something being on the tip of their tongue. Retrieval cues are defined as words or other stimuli that help us remember information stored in our memory. An example of a retrieval cue might be seeing the calendar or remembering your mother's birthday based on seeing the month she was born in. Retrieval cues are usually phrases or words. Another example of a retrieval cue might be hearing someone say something and then being able to remember something associated with that. So I guess an example of this could be hearing your grandparents say, I remember that time you were a baby and I tried to get you to get in the car. And for me, that automatically goes back to the story of when my grandpa was picking me up from daycare and he was trying to get me into the car and I didn't want to get in. So he made me get in and get out and get in and get out over and over again until I had a fit and wanted to just stay in the car. So that's what that retrieval cue for me means when I hear the phrase, remember that story when you didn't want to get in the car. Location can serve as a retrieval cue. And an example of this could be being at school and remembering to go to class or do your homework or to speak to the teacher during their office hours. Returning to a particular place stimulates memories associated with this place. And I think that's pretty much a given. I think we've all experienced that. The book gave an example of a person going to their grandparents' house and being flooded with memories from that place. And so I think that we pretty much remember things when we're in a certain place. We use recall procedures to retrieve information from our memory. There are 2 types of recall procedures. The first is called free recall, where the individual is asked to remember a stimuli that they were previously presented. An example of free recall is showing a movie to a person, then asking them to remember the name of the main character or the setting of the movie, or maybe even the name of the movie or what the movie was about. The next is called cued recall. Cued recall is a procedure for testing memory in which a participant is presented with cues to aid recall of previously experienced stimuli. So it's different from free recall in that free recall doesn't provide you a cue. However, cued recalls does provide a cue to help you remember. An example of cued recall could be showing a person the color blue when asking them to recall the name of Beyonce's oldest child. These cues are typically words or phrases, and retrieval cues aid in memory. Retrieval can be increased by matching the conditions at retrieval to the conditions at encoding. There are 3 different specific situations in which retrieval is increased by matching conditions at retrieval to conditions at encoding. The first is encoding specificity, which is matching the context in which encoding and retrieval occur. The next is state-dependent learning, which is matching the internal mood present at encoding and retrieval. The last is transfer-appropriate processing, which is matching the task involved in coding and retrieval. An example of coding specificity would be returning to your elementary school and remembering the memories and experiences you had as a student there. The retrieval of these memories may be specific to where they were encoded at, which in this case is the elementary school. And I know someone my age at 24 years old, memories of elementary school can be kind of blurred and hazy, but being present in the elementary school can probably flood back in a whole bunch of memories that I had not previously even thought of in the last 10 plus years. And even sitting in the desk I used to sit at can bring even more memories, or going to resources such as the library or art or the gym can flood back memories as well. Things that would be hard to remember if I wasn't in that place. So I think that's why people, when someone says they lost something, they ask them what was the last place they remember having it, and then going to that place to stimulate the memory of the item they're missing. An example of state-dependent learning would be feeling sad at a funeral and then retrieving the memory of the funeral later when you see a picture of the deceased person that makes you sad. The principle of state-dependent learning states that memory would be better when a person's internal state during retrieval matches his or her internal state during encoding. For me, this would be hearing a song at a cookout during summer when I was happy with my family, and a few weeks later when I'm happy, I'm able to retrieve this memory again. And I could throw retrieval cues in there by saying the song is what stimulated the memory of being happy at with my family over the summer. An example of transfer-appropriate processing would be the encoding of the memory of solving a specific math problem, then employing that same cognitive task to complete a similar problem at a different or later time. An example of this concept showed that an experiment of this concept showed that retrieval is better if the same cognitive tasks are involved during both encoding and retrieval. So for me, an example of this would be trying to remember how to drive a car on the interstate by employing the same cognitive tasks that were in place when I first learned how to drive on the interstate, which would include, if I start from home, that would include unlocking the car door, getting in the car, starting the car, then driving to the interstate. And then as I get in the merge lane, that would include gaining speed, putting on my blinker to signify that I want to get over. Then I would look over for oncoming traffic, and then matching the speed of the other cars that's already on the interstate once I complete the merge. And that's how I learned how to merge on the interstate when I was first learning how to drive. And so I'm able to remember how to merge on the interstate by employing the same cognitive tasks when I'm trying to also merge on the interstate again at a different time. So that concludes my description of learning outcome number 2, which asks me to elaborate on how we retrieve information from memory. And so the main parts I got from this chapter was the importance of retrieval cues, the different types of recall procedures, and then the different conditions in which memories can be recalled. And so thank you for listening.